guys, it's Jamie from No Getting Off This Train, and today I'm going to show you an easy recipe for dinner rolls that you can put in your freezer. This recipe is part of my 25 Days of Freezer Meals series. If you haven't checked it out yet, I've got a link in the description below, so make sure you go check it out if you want more freezer meal recipes. Now, this particular recipe for dinner rolls does not require a bread machine. I do have one, and in fact, I went to the thrift store like 5 or 6 years ago, and I bought one for $6, and it has done amazingly ever since. So if you want a bread machine, just go to your thrift store. They are seriously really cheap. But if you don't have a bread machine and you don't want to get one, this recipe would work fine as well. I used my stand mixer, but you could probably just use your hands as well. Now, the thing about bread is that sometimes you need to add more flour or more liquid, just depending on how the dough looks. It's kind of like a fine science. I do say in the recipe to use like up to 3 cups, but you might need to use more. I started with 2 cups of flour in the mix, and then as I saw that it was not getting any drier, I added a little bit more at a time. So I think it was about 3 cups of flour that I put in. So you really have to use your best judgment, take a look at the flour and the dough mixture, see if you need more. And you don't have to bake these dinner rolls right away. After you cut them into the dinner roll pieces, you can freeze them individually on a tray and you can bake them later. Now you can bake them right away if you want to. I've done both. I've cooked them ahead of time and then frozen them, and I've also just put them in the freezer unfrozen. If you put them in the freezer without baking, you'll need to let them rise for like 4 hours once you get them out. But if you bake them ahead of time, just let them rise for an hour before baking and then putting in the freezer. So, let me show you how they're made. Start by microwaving 1 cup of milk for about 40 seconds. Then add 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1 packet of yeast and mix to combine. Let it sit for about 5 minutes. Next, in a stand mixer, add 2½ cups of all-purpose flour and 1 teaspoon of salt, and then use the dough hook to combine. Next, add in a 1/2 stick of softened butter and let that combine. Then crack 1 egg into the milk mixture and whisk it together. Slowly add it to the flour. Now this part took about 10 or 15 minutes because I had to constantly watch the dough to make sure that it didn't stay too wet. You'll need to scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure it all gets mixed in. If the mixture still seems too wet, add flour a tablespoon or 2 at a time. You want to make sure the dough is coming off the bowl. Mine was still a little bit sticky, but it was still pliable. Cover it with plastic wrap and let it rise for about an hour. It was kind of cold in the house, so my dough didn't rise a whole lot. Yours might rise a little bit more if it's warmer in your house. Add it to a cutting board that's dusted with flour and then knead it with your hands. It should be less sticky at this point. Next, cut the dough into 12 equal pieces. They don't have to be perfect, I know mine weren't. If you want them to be exactly equal, you can use a food scale to weigh out your dough. I've done that before as well. Once you've cut your pieces, tuck the end underneath to make more of a roll shape. Then add them to a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. Make sure they're not touching so they don't freeze together. Put these in the freezer for about 3 or 4 hours until they're completely frozen, then transfer them to a gallon-sized freezer bag. When you're ready to bake them, get them out and let them thaw and rise for 3 or 4 hours, and then bake them at 375 for about 15 minutes until they're golden brown on top. If you would like a printable recipe for these, you can find a link in the description below. Also, check out my link for the 25 Days of Freezer Meal series if you need more freezer meal ideas. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get more updates on when I post my grocery hauls, my recipes, and my meal planning tips. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later.